So, how do you find a purpose for your life in a universe that, well, seems to have no purpose at all? It's one of the absolute biggest questions we can ask, and today we're going to dig into a really powerful way to answer it.
It really starts with a feeling I think we've all had at some point is this all just random? Is there a point to any of it? That feeling, that question is really the source of this deep tension right at the heart of the human experience. All right, so first up, let's just confront this idea head on, this concept of a pointless universe. We're going to look at the fundamental conflict between our deep, internal drive for meaning and an external reality that, honestly, often seems like it just doesn't care. This conflict actually has a name. It's called a teleological crisis. It's basically the friction between our minds, which are these incredible goal-seeking machines, and a universe that doesn't seem to have any goals whatsoever. And here's the divide in a nutshell. On one side, you've got us. Our brains are literally wired to find a target and move towards it. It's just how we operate. On the other side, the cosmos. It just is. It isn't headed anywhere in particular. Figuring out how to bridge this gap is absolutely key to living a meaningful life. Okay, so to get a handle on our place in all of this, we need to zoom out. I mean, way out. Let's take a look at what some call the global fabric of reality itself. This framework calls it the monistic fabric. The main idea here is to imagine reality not as a collection of separate things, like a box of Legos, but more like one single, continuous, flowing river. Everything's connected, and every single ripple is just the result of a previous one. Now, this fabric has a few really key features. First, it's continuous. There aren't any real hard lines between anything. It's also causally determined, just like dominoes falling, one thing always leads to the next. And most importantly for our discussion, it's aimless. It has no grand plan. It just exists. So if that's true, if reality is one big seamless fabric, then what are we? Well, in this view, we are seeming separations. The idea of you as a totally separate thing is an incredibly useful and powerful illusion, one that likely evolved to help us navigate the world and, survive. Okay, so that was the huge cosmic view. Now let's zoom right back in all the way to the human mind. Because this is where meaning actually gets made. Think about this quote for a second. Objects really only exist in the mind of specific objects. What does that even mean? Well, the universe itself doesn't know what a chair is. To the universe, it's just a continuous flow of matter and energy. It's our mind that draws a mental circle around a piece of that flow and gives it a name, a definition, a reality. And our minds follow a pretty clear process to do this. First, we see a pattern in all the chaos. Second, we define its borders, and boom, we create an object. And only then, as a third step, can we assign a purpose to that object. This little three-step process, it's the engine of all meaning. So the takeaway is that this act of creating a boundary is the absolute first step for creating a goal. You can't have a purpose for something if that something doesn't even exist as an object in your mind first. In other words, definition always comes before destination. And this brings us right to the core of the whole idea. Two truths, one reality. Now we're going to see how these two perspectives, the cosmic and the personal, the aimless and the purposeful, can actually fit together perfectly with zero contradiction. So here's how these two layers can coexist. On the global cosmic scale, reality is this continuous, aimless flow. But on our local scale, the reality we actually experience day to day, it's made of distinct objects, it's driven by purpose, and it feels autonomous. And the thing is, both of these are true. They're just different levels of analysis, kind of like looking at a whole forest versus looking at a single tree. This right here is the solution. The fact that the universe as a whole might be aimless doesn't for a second invalidate the purpose that you create. Think of it like this. A wave in the ocean has a clear direction. It's moving towards the shore. But the individual water molecules inside that wave, they're just moving up and down. See? The properties of the whole system don't always have to apply to the part. So what does all of this actually mean for us? This is where this whole idea becomes incredibly empowering. We're talking about the power of local purpose and the amazing freedom it gives us to create our own meaning. It starts with a little bit of intellectual humility. When we start talking about the ultimate purpose of the entire cosmos, we kind of have to admit it's an undecidable question. Saying you know for a fact it has no point is just as big a leap of faith as saying you know that it does.
The most honest, logical position is to just admit we can't know for sure.
This is so helpful because it lets us separate what we can control from what we can't. We know we have local agency. We know it's a functional reality. We know our minds construct objects and meaning. But the ultimate purpose of everything, that goes squarely in the unknown column. And you know what? That's incredibly freeing. It lets us stop worrying about the unanswerable cosmic questions and focus our energy on a local reality we can actually shape.
And this is the final, most important takeaway. The meaning that you create in your life is not a consolation prize. It's not some cheap substitute for a real cosmic purpose. It is a robust, valid, and powerful reality all on its own, created by the only authority that truly matters in your life, you. And so this leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. If meaning isn't something you discover out there in the cosmos, but something you actively construct right here, what will you make?